Alright, starting off episode 2 here, the LS swap, and I got a couple things to address before we get into whatever this video is going to be. First thing is the engine is out, and I should have explained this in the last video, but I didn't really think about it until I saw some Instagram comments today, and that was exhaust, what's going on, and starter. Kind of two random things, but I mean it makes sense. Yes, the starter will clear, we got plenty of space for that. We made sure when it was getting mocked up. And then exhaust, I got a set of these stock LS3 manifolds that came with the crate that's in the GTO, but my dad put headers on it. So these are basically brand new, and it kind of worked out perfectly. These hug the block pretty nice, and then if you could see this kind of divot before it goes down to the flange there, that clears the steering column perfectly. Like, it seriously couldn't have worked out any better. Kind of lucked out with that, especially with the engine being to the passenger side. I think it's going to work out perfectly. So those two things, pretty cool. Happy that they worked out. And the next step is to toss this thing up on jack stands and then start tearing apart the front suspension so I can weld this guy all up here. And another quick little thing I kind of glossed over or didn't really think about is details on the engine. So if you didn't see when we built the engine over the past few months during the summer, here's kind of a quick recap of what exactly we got going on, because I was getting some questions on that. So it is an iron block 5.3 with aluminum 862 heads, nothing too crazy. Basically we kind of did a mild rebuild, you could say. Biggest thing is I got a sloppy stage 2 cam in it, did new springs and seals on the heads. Hot tanked everything, cleaned it all new gaskets, new water pump, new oil pump, new timing chain, timing gear. Cleaned up and repainted everything. Basically, I was getting a bunch of questions on what pan I'm running, and this is a GTO pan from 04-05 GTO. And I saw a bunch of guys that said this one or Trailblazer pan would work because it's a front sump and you need this notch here in order to clear the center link. Now ideally I would like to have a rack and pinion. The rack would be up here. Oil pan wouldn't be such a big deal, but this is what I've seen what other guys have done, and sure enough works out perfectly. Well, there we have it. Front suspension on this thing is all torn out, and it's giving me some serious flashbacks to last year. This car looks so sad with virtually nothing in it, but it'll be all worth it sooner than later. So plan is tomorrow, start on this guy, box it in, weld up all the mounts and everything. Hoping we have enough gas in the tank where I can just finish this, knock it all out tomorrow. That'd be sweet. Then I gotta go through and basically degrease and clean all this mess here. I don't even want to look at these things. I want coilover so bad. One day. But yeah, upper and lower arms got to be repainted. Spindles got to be repainted. It's just last winter wasn't awful. I mean, they're not, rusted, but that's what happens when you basically, daily the car for a year. Yeah, literally, drive it through all 4 seasons. So that's what happens. It was worth it though. We boxed these guys in last year too, so the lowers are pretty good. I really need some tubular uppers. Tubular uppers and lower would be ideal. One day, once again, we'll get to that. Torsion bars. This thing might need new torsion bars. These are pretty weak, but then again, the slant technically, I guess, does weigh more than the LS. Kind of just doing some quick math, or I don't know, with the aluminum heads it might even out. Who knows? But yeah, we'd set the alignment on this thing, get it friggin' perfect, and then after a day this thing would just sink again. These things are pretty worn out, so we'll see if I end up getting some bigger ones right now, or that might be in a month or 2 down the line kind of deal. And then we definitely got to figure out the dealio with the steering here. This is another thing that we have fought constantly for the past year. So not power steering. I don't want to go power steering. I like the manual steering. Keep that for now. Maybe a quick ratio box. I mean, this is the stock box, but we have a new worm gear, new bearings in it from Firmfeel, and yeah, like I said, it hasn't been it, unfortunately. So we'll figure that out too. The other thing is we're gonna go ahead and do stainless fuel and brake lines too, so finally say goodbye to these guys. Well, other than that, it's pretty solid amount of progress today. Oh, well, I was messing with that for most of the time. My dad over the past few nights got the clutch pedal assembly and the clutch master here all set up, and that looks really, really nice in there. This gets me so excited seeing the clutch pedals in here. Oh, I cannot wait. Oh, it's too dark, but you get the point. This car is going to be so much fun. So first things first here on the K-member is I got to go through and square up this notch here. The top is where I want it. The bottom, it was hard to get it square and parallel in the car, so I'll go ahead and start off with that. And then I'm going to grind this side flush. So as you can see, there's kind of like this little lip. Oh boy. There we go. That sticks out, and this piece is actually kind of recessed in compared to this lip, so I think I'm going to go ahead and just grind it back. Make it all one flat piece, that way it looks good. And then I got to trim a bunch of this off for the alternator, so I got to mark this right there. Basically trim that down. And then we can start getting to welding on this thing. That was a ton of work, but it looks so much better now. Got that notch all squared in there. Got this side smoothed out. Took that bracket off. That was right there, so I got space for the alternator. I'm just gonna have to make a piece that covers up that hole, and then a plate to go in the back here, which I was already planning on doing, but yeah, that's not holding an engine. So we'll box that all up. Yeah, and then I'll start making the templates for the notch here and some of the other pieces. But one last thing before I can start doing that is I'm gonna drill a couple holes in the bottom side of this K-member here and then weld nuts on the inside lip in there. That way I can make a skid plate, because the way this oil pan is it hangs about, I think it was 3/4 of an inch lower than this bottom lip here. So I'm gonna put, I think, one nut on the inside there, and one on each side. That way I can make a skid plate that bolts on and off. So I think that'll be pretty neat and work out well. So I got all the holes drilled out for the skid plate deal here. Yes, these bolts are probably a little overkill, but it's what I had, so it'll work. I just got to go through and weld the nuts to the backside in there before I can go through and scrape the rest of this junk out and then start plating it. But I got all my templates made and all the pieces cut out, so we'll do one piece across the front here, one along the inside here. I went ahead and decided to make this all one piece. I think it'll look cleaner and smoother, and then box in the back side of this mount too. So that's what these two pieces here are for. Well, it took me about 3 days now, but the K-member is done. It's done. I'm pretty happy with it. This was easily my most fab intense project to date here. I loved every bit of it. This thing turned out pretty good. I'm happy with it. So for this mount, went ahead and welded a plate on the side here as well as the front, and then welded this plate over the top that the motor mount tube is sitting on. Put a little tab going off the back there, if this would focus. There we go. So yeah, that tab's on the back there. And then what else did I do? Oh yeah, I made this whole piece, as you guys saw, it was all one piece here. I went ahead and grinded down the insides of both just because that's where the oil pan's gonna be, so we got it nice and flush. Went ahead and made little triangle gussets on both sides of this mount here, so that should be structurally safe. And I opted not to grind down all the welds on the surfaces here, primarily just because I didn't want to once again ruin the structural integrity of this, because this thing is pretty thin as is. I don't know what the actual measurement is, but from this lip to the inside of this piece here, I'd say it's somewhere about, I don't know, maybe 2.5, 3 inches. So cross my fingers this holds the engine. I've seen other guys do it and it's worked, but if it doesn't for some reason, which God forbid that happens, that would suck. I'm thinking I could do some braces off the backside that would go up into the frame rail here. Let's see if I can flip this over one-handed to show you guys the bottom side too. Yeah, there we go. So here's the bottom side. Pretty much the same, just so you can get a closer look of the plates on the inside, as well as the holes for those 4 bolts on the skid plate. So I kind of forgot to film a little outro here and explain exactly what's going on. But as you can see behind me here, the car is pretty much all stripped down. Like, just a little farther than I want it to go, but it'll definitely be worth it. yeah, it's kind of weird looking at it like this. A little bit scary, but oh man, pumped to get it all back together. So obviously the grill is out, everything's out of the engine bay except for the heater, because I really don't want to take that out. I really don't want to have to disconnect all the cables. That's not a fun thing to do. Same with the booster here. I didn't want to mess with the brake pedals or anything, so we'll just tape all that off. I mean, it's painted behind it, basically this paint job, if you want to call it that. It's just kind of to touch it up and make it look shiny for that guy right there. But underneath, it's we got the rear end out. You can see that back there. And one thing I wanted to show you guys before we actually did anything is kind of what the rear end or underneath the car looks like right now. So it's not rusty anywhere. It's more or less just kind of dirty. This back half, basically from the floor back, is all stock undercoating, and the floor is freshly painted from when we put it in there a year and a half ago. And then obviously the front, I undercoated the inside of those fenders. So it's kind of like a hodgepodge of things we got going on here, and I just feel a lot better if it was all, you know, one solid undercoated piece, and when you look underneath it, it's all one color. So that's kind of the plan for this guy right here. But yeah, next video plan is paint, prep engine bay, got some things weld up in there, clean, undercoat the entire bottom side, and we'll see where else we can get maybe cleaning up and like repainting all the suspension. So not necessarily the most interesting thing, but I kind of like doing this like weekly video deal thing. My goal is maybe try to get one up every Sunday since opposed to the last one on Sunday. So I'll see if I can't get this up by this coming Sunday. But yeah, just kind of little clips of what we've done over the week until this thing hits the road again, which I'm gonna say this right now, this is kind of ambitious, but I also think it's definitely doable. Is kind of what I've been thinking is maybe before the end of the year, by the end of the year, we can get this thing up, running and driving again. I think once we get all this painted and undercoated, things are gonna start going back on, because I got this whole pile of boxes here of parts just waiting to go on. There's still a couple things I gotta order, which should have measured and looked at. We had the engine in there the first time, but I totally forgot about it. So cross my fingers, we can do that as soon as we get the engine back in and don't have to wait on parts.